See? You want to lighten a little bit? Now, it would be hard for me to go back over that with watercolor, but there, see that, how that works? A lot of times you wouldn't know that I even really used acrylics in there. Acrylic or gouache. Sometimes I use acrylics, but see there? Look at how nice that. But again, I'm not a purist. Now, if I were to enter the transparent, well, then of course I can't do this kind of thing. So.
You don't have to tell them.
Huh?
You don't have to tell them.
Hey, you know, I got into that show one time, and this Irving Shapiro was the judge. Well, he started that organization, and so he brought some examples of his work, and there was gouache in there. You should have heard the people talk about that.
Is that right?
So,
We had Irving here years ago.
yeah, you did. You told me that, didn't
Yeah,
you?
the only thing is, he never let us paint.
Yeah. He knew how to make money.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, he was a wonderful instructor. Always wore a suit and a tie, or a sport coat and a tie. He'd sit in the back of the room and he'd make these little tiny thumbnail paintings. And so every once in a while, you know, one time he said, "Get up, I got to get this down on paper before I go home tonight." So he sat down and did a watercolor. But you always called him Mr. Shapiro.
His wife did?
Huh?
His wife?
No, as a student, you always called him Mr. Shapiro. And it didn't matter if you were 18 or 50. You had to call him that. So, but he really was a really nice guy, and I learned so much from him that it was just amazing. So,
You know, I called him back after our workshop, and I said, I really enjoyed painting with you, or seeing you paint. Would you consider coming back but letting us paint? Oh,
yeah.
That was not good.
No. You know, I think was that over in St. Paul?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I was teaching there at the time, but I still had my business, and I had a Friday that I could sneak over there, and I watched his demo, and yeah. I can talk about gray now. See the gray that I made there? And what I like about mixing my gray is that now, you know, and you notice, look at this palette, my colors are so juicy. I really didn't want that much, but my paint is so nice and wet. You know, fine, that's okay with me, But do you see what my palette looks like? And if I turned this thing up on its side, it'd all run, so. And I think tonight, this is one of the main things I'm trying to show you, is that I see too many times where students are not using their colors wet enough. There, do you see how I changed it a little bit from that? So I can make a little cooler gray. I can make a little warmer gray. So now if I add just a touch more blue to it. Now here again, do you see how I'm just touching? I'm not going into the previous color. I just touch the edge, and so hopefully then I get two colors and just a nice soft mix of the two colors. And if you have any questions, just yell at me. I can.
What year was the Irving Shapiro workshop?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I can't remember.
70s?
Yeah, I think so.
70s,
Something like
I think.
that,
Yeah. I moved up here. You know, it was because in Chicago, I had a lot of job offers out of art school to go to work in an art studio now. But I wanted to come up here. And it was really funny because, see how I softened that edge? Do you see how I just kind of softened that edge a little bit there? Well, it was really simple because it was nice and wet, so I could soften. Only thing I noticed with these brushes, sometimes they hold a little bit too much water and I don't get it dried out enough sometimes, so. Anyway, but see the nice flavor that you can get in there with that? These are all really base colors that I'm putting down here. You know, I can build on top of this. You know, I might, who knows, maybe I would come back and I would hit it with a darker blue up in the sky. You know, but it's just kind of a basic.
Do you get a texture difference if you're painting on top of paints as opposed to the raw board?
No. No, I don't really know any difference. The only, you know, you talked about hot press, and I've worked on hot press, and I noticed that with hot press, when you go over a color, it can easily pick up what's down there,
Yeah.
but not with this stuff. So it's not, they call it Crescent cold press watercolor board. It's cold press. They do have a hot press. They do have a hot press also. What I've noticed is that it would take an awful lot for me scrubbing around to get the color that's already down here to come up and mix with It's amazing. This size brushes, look at the point I can make with this thing. It's amazing.
So
Andy Evenson didn't convert me into being a loose painter, but he sure convinced me on these brushes.
So maybe in 5 minutes we'll do.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So am I doing all right in time-wise? So, okay. Just before we break, the things that I brought here, unless I list it differently, I did them on watercolor board, and then there's one on Fabriano that I'm in process, and then there's one on just regular Arches paper. And then I brought that little tiny gouache painting. I used to belong to the Florida Miniature Art Society, so that's why I brought that along. But as I say, I'm going to start working a little more again in gouache again. Okay. So I'm going to change this now. So, and then you just yell at me when you want me to stop. Okay. You know, so you notice that I had this Quinn Gold right here. See, and I took some sap green, but see how I mixed it in there? See, I mixed it in with that. So, and you notice through this whole thing, I haven't cleaned this off, have I? So unless I radically changed the color someplace, I would clean off a little spot. But the only thing with working with acrylics is that I still get a little frustrated that you can't reconstitute it like you can this or like I can gouache. So, see, so we just drop it in. You know, I have a brush that I use it for watercolor, but I really use it for my acrylics. I don't know if you've all heard about this lady Shiwi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie
Oh,
Shiwi.
that Shiwi angular foliage.
Yep.
I gotta buy more. I'm scared to death they're gonna run out of those things. I'll tell you,
She's
they're
got a lot.
wonderful. Is she still on TV or?
I don't know if she's on TV yet, but she's still around the painting circuit, so.
Is she? Mm-hmm. If I were, and then what I do when I'm working with, when I'm working in acrylic, I work from dark to light. So if I were doing these trees, I would paint them really, really dark, and then work my way to the lighter. But as you know, obviously you can't do that, so.
We should probably break.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine, and I can do one thing here before they come back, okay? Doing okay?
Yep.
Everything all right? Okay. All right. So any questions if you want to talk to me about anything here or whatever? Hey, you want a little commercial? I'll give you a little commercial I teach every Wednesday in my studio. Every Wednesday in the morning and in the afternoon. It's $45 for 3 hours, but you don't have to sign up for 6 weeks or 5 weeks, or you can come and go. Because this is the age group I teach to. People go on vacation, people get sick. No, I'd rather, you know, or some people can't afford to come all the time. I'd rather see you a few times. And my method is, you bring your work, we work with your style, we work in your medium, because I work in oil, acrylic, watercolor, so, okay? And
Where's your studio?
And my studio's in Burnsville, in my home. Yeah, and so I know it's kind of, I know it's a little bit away. The only thing I was thinking, maybe, I used to have an all day on Saturday in my studio, in my house. And I think I might start that up again, where that goes 9 to 4, and that's $50. That's $50, so, for that. I'll put it on, I'll put it on my website if I decide to do that, okay? So. Oh, is he? Huh? Keep talking. I just want to put something down.
Name Leo Weeks?
No. No, you know, I left Chicago, I kind of left Chicago right away. Come up here. But, I just want to get this down so then when we come back, it'll be dry.
Keep it structured.
When we come back, it'll be dry. Okay, good, so I have a hard dish.
Wonderful. You're a good teacher. I like your, the only thing I would like to hear is what colors you're choosing.
Oh,
Like
okay.
if you go into the trees or, and here you had a gray, but what glue did you use to do the silos?
I use ultramarine blue and I use ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, or you can use ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Wonder it makes wonderful grays. Look how I turned it from gray to brownish gray. And it has color, you know.
And this is done, do you have pencil lines?
You won't see them. You won't see them when I get all done. You won't see my pencil line. They'll be gone. Yeah, you know, and then I stopped. I don't have I have that one. But see, I was talking to you about, but you got the, no, you got the, you have the light one, I think. I think you got the light.
I do it once in a while, yeah.
But what I do, to do it once in your life.
I don't compare that, but if I want to put a color on a paper, I put it on a scrap piece first.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just get it right out of there. That, you know, that could be, because, you know, to me, it's the best art supply shop you can go to. She did it. I've known her for a long time. I saw her a couple nights before Bloomington, West then I got to speak This is it. Yeah, you know, and part of it is music, you know what's helping me? Is and that's why I use it. Now, people there, that's our thing. There's a lot of layers on there, but I think, wow, down like that. Yeah. That's right.
The Best Buys in that parking lot, when I was in that parking lot, that's what so we're going to eat too, right? Okay. I can all eat.
That's what keeps you honest, right? You have a friend that works in I wasn't there. Everything going. Yeah, I just didn't want to give it Yeah, that's great. You know, well, it's been years. I've been going down there. We used to come up here. Son told me the doctor yeah, you were